BTS News Today. For years, Jungkook has been known as the Golden Magne, the youngest member of BTS whose talent seemed almost unreal. From his powerful vocals to his flawless performances, he appeared to be the embodiment of confidence, passion, and unwavering dedication. To millions of fans around the world, Jungkook looked like someone who was born to be on stage, someone who thrived under the spotlight and carried the future of BTS effortlessly on his shoulders. Yet behind that polished image, behind the bright smiles and explosive performances, there existed a quieter story that few ever noticed. A story filled with doubt, fear, and moments when Jungkook himself questioned whether he truly belonged where he stood. The idea that Jungkook, of all people, might have once considered leaving BTS sounds almost impossible. BTS without Jungkook feels unimaginable now, but the journey that led them to global superstardom was never as smooth as it appears in hindsight. Long before stadium tours, record-breaking albums, and historic awards, BTS was a group fighting to survive in an industry that rarely showed mercy. And Jungkook, despite being the youngest, was not shielded from that pressure. In fact, in many ways, he carried a unique burden that set him apart from the others. Jungkook joined Big Hit Entertainment at an incredibly young age, leaving his home and family behind to chase a dream that was far from guaranteed. He was still growing, still discovering who he was as a person, while being molded into an idol under constant evaluation. Trainers praised his potential, fans admired his talent, but Jungkook himself often felt trapped between expectations and self-doubt. The world saw a prodigy, but Jungkook saw a boy who was afraid of disappointing everyone around him. As BTS began to gain attention, the pressure only intensified. Jungkook was frequently labeled as the center, the ace, the one who could do everything. While those titles sounded flattering, they also created a silent weight. Every mistake felt magnified. Every performance became a test. Jungkook has spoken in the past about how harshly he judged himself, how he replayed his errors over and over in his mind long after the cameras were turned off. What fans interpreted as perfection was, for Jungkook, never enough. There were moments during BTS's early years when exhaustion went beyond physical fatigue and turned into emotional isolation. Jungkook was surrounded by his members, yet he sometimes felt alone in his thoughts. Being the youngest meant he often kept his worries to himself, afraid of burdening the others who were already struggling in their own ways. He watched his hyungs endure criticism, financial uncertainty, and public indifference, and he questioned whether his presence was truly helping the group or merely adding another responsibility they had to carry. Rumors among fans have long suggested that there was a period when Jungkook seriously considered walking away. Not because he lacked passion, but because he felt overwhelmed by guilt. Guilt for not feeling strong enough. Guilt for feeling tired when others were pushing forward. Guilt for wanting a normal life, even briefly, while standing in a group that depended on unity and sacrifice. These thoughts did not come from weakness, but from a deep sense of responsibility that Jungkook carried far too young. What made this internal conflict even more intense was Jungkook's relationship with the members, particularly those he admired deeply. He often looked to them for guidance, measuring himself against their resilience and emotional strength. When he felt he fell short, the gap felt unbearable. Instead of seeing himself as an equal contributor, Jungkook sometimes viewed himself as someone who had not yet earned his place. This mindset slowly fed the idea that maybe stepping away would be the most honest thing to do. Behind closed doors, during late-night practices and silent dorm rooms, Jungkook reportedly questioned his own identity. Was he Jungkook the artist, or Jungkook the product of expectations? Was his love for music strong enough to survive the constant pressure of being watched, judged, and praised at the same time? These were not questions meant for interviews or fan meetings. They were private battles fought in the quiet moments when applause could no longer drown out doubt. What ultimately kept Jungkook from leaving was not fame, money, or success. It was connection. The bond he shared with BTS was not something that could be replaced or replicated. The members were not just teammates. They were family who had grown together through uncertainty and fear. In moments when Jungkook felt closest to giving up, it was their belief in him that anchored him. They saw his struggles even when he tried to hide them, and they never treated his doubts as a failure. There is a powerful irony in the fact that Jungkook's vulnerability, the very thing that made him question his place, is also what made him indispensable to BTS. His sensitivity allowed him to connect with music on a deeper level. His fear of disappointing others pushed him to train harder, to refine himself constantly. What he once viewed as weaknesses slowly became the foundation of his artistry. As BTS's success grew, Jungkook's perspective began to shift. He started to understand that perfection was never the goal. Growth was. The stage became less of a battlefield and more of a space for expression. While the pressure never fully disappeared, Jungkook learned to coexist with it, acknowledging his fears instead of letting them control him. The idea of leaving did not vanish overnight, but it gradually lost its power. Looking back now, the thought of Jungkook nearly leaving BTS feels like a hidden chapter in a story that could have ended very differently. If he had walked away, not only would BTS have lost a vital member, but Jungkook himself might have lost the chance to discover his true strength. His journey is a reminder that even those who shine the brightest often stand in the deepest shadows. Today, when Jungkook steps on stage with confidence and commands the crowd with ease, fans see a man who has grown far beyond the boy who once doubted himself. Yet that past remains an important part of his story. It explains the emotion in his voice, the sincerity in his performances, and the quiet humility he carries despite his global fame. That BTS's unseen drama is not about scandals or conflicts. It is about survival, emotional endurance, and the courage to stay when leaving feels easier. Jungkook's near departure is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to how heavy dreams can become when they are carried too young. And perhaps that is why his presence in BTS feels so meaningful now. He stayed, not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. In the end, Jungkook did not just choose BTS. He chose himself, his growth, and the belief that even doubt has a place in the journey toward greatness. And that unseen choice may be one of the most powerful stories BTS has ever lived. The story does not truly end with Jungkook choosing to stay. In many ways, that decision marked the beginning of a deeper transformation, one that unfolded quietly as BTS continued to rise. As the group stepped into global recognition, Jungkook's internal struggle evolved rather than disappeared. Fame brought validation, but it also brought a new kind of pressure, one that forced him to confront the very fears he once tried to escape. As international stages replaced small venues, Jungkook became increasingly aware that his every move was being watched by millions. The boy who once worried about disappointing 7 people now felt the weight of disappointing an entire world. Interviews, live broadcasts, and behind-the-scenes footage showed a smiling idol, but between those moments were long stretches of introspection. Jungkook began to realize that staying in BTS did not magically solve his doubts. Instead, it challenged him to grow stronger mentally and emotionally in ways he had never imagined. There were times when Jungkook withdrew into himself, becoming quieter during group discussions or more reserved during public appearances. Fans noticed subtle changes, moments when his smile looked thoughtful rather than carefree. These were not signs of distance from the group, but signs of someone processing his place within something much larger than himself. Jungkook was no longer just fighting to belong. He was fighting to define who he was beyond expectations. Music became his refuge. In the recording studio, Jungkook found a language that felt more honest than words. Singing allowed him to release emotions he could not openly express. Many fans believe that the rawness in his voice during certain performances reflects the unresolved emotions of those earlier years. Each note carried echoes of uncertainty, gratitude, fear, and resilience. Without explicitly saying it, Jungkook was telling his story through sound. His relationship with the members deepened during this period. The bond within BTS matured from youthful reliance into mutual understanding. Jungkook no longer saw himself merely as the youngest who had to keep up. He began to recognize his value as an individual artist, an emotional pillar within the group. This shift did not come from sudden confidence, but from countless shared moments, private conversations, and silent support exchanged when words were unnecessary. What makes Jungkook's journey particularly compelling is how rarely he speaks about these struggles directly. Unlike dramatic revelations or public confessions, his story is woven subtly into the timeline of BTS. It exists in fleeting expressions, heartfelt lyrics, and moments of vulnerability caught on camera by chance. This quietness has led fans to piece together his emotional arc not from one statement, but from years of observation and empathy. As BTS entered a phase where individual projects became possible, Jungkook faced another internal crossroads. Solo opportunities offered freedom, creative control, and a chance to explore his identity outside the group. Yet they also reopened old questions. Could he stand alone without losing the connection that once saved him? Was independence a step forward or a risk of isolation? These questions mirrored the ones he had faced years earlier, proving that growth is often circular rather than linear. Instead of pulling away, Jungkook approached this phase differently. He embraced exploration while remaining grounded in the group that shaped him. This balance revealed how far he had come. The boy who once thought leaving might be the answer now understood that staying did not mean stagnation. It meant evolving together while honoring personal growth. Fans often describe Jungkook as someone who carries emotion with sincerity, and that sincerity may stem from the scars of his unseen struggles. His performances feel alive because they are rooted in real experiences, not manufactured perfection. When he sings about longing, uncertainty, or hope, it resonates because those emotions once defined his reality. Looking back, Jungkook's near departure feels like a turning point that could have rewritten BTS's history. Yet perhaps it was necessary for him to reach the depth he now possesses as an artist. Without those moments of doubt, his strength might have remained untested. Without questioning his place, he might never have fully understood his worth. The unseen drama surrounding Jungkook is not meant to shock or sensationalize. It serves as a reminder that even the most admired figures wrestle with invisible battles. Success does not erase vulnerability, it often amplifies it. Jungkook's story challenges the idea that idols are immune to fear or uncertainty. Instead, it shows that courage is not the absence of doubt, but the decision to move forward despite it. Today, Jungkook stands not just as BTS's golden magne, but as a symbol of quiet perseverance. His journey reflects the emotional cost of dreams pursued too early and the healing that comes from connection, patience, and self-acceptance. The reason he nearly left was never about wanting to escape BTS. It was about learning how to stay without losing himself, and perhaps that is the most powerful lesson hidden within BTS's unseen drama. Sometimes, the strongest choice is not walking away from the storm, but standing in it long enough to discover who you truly are. As time moved forward, Jungkook's story continued to unfold in ways that were subtle yet deeply meaningful. The more he grew into his role as an artist, the more clearly fans could sense that his past struggles had reshaped the way he approached both music and life. He no longer chased perfection with the same desperation as before. Instead, there was a quiet confidence in how he carried himself, as if he had finally accepted that imperfection was not something to fear, but something that made his journey real. Behind the scenes, Jungkook began to take more ownership of his craft. He spent long hours refining melodies, experimenting with vocal techniques, and immersing himself in creative processes that felt personal rather than imposed. This shift was not loud or dramatic, but it marked a crucial change. Music was no longer just a responsibility tied to BTS's success. It became a space where Jungkook could breathe, reflect, and express parts of himself that had once felt suffocated by expectations. There were moments during live performances when his emotions seemed to surface unexpectedly. A lingering gaze into the crowd, a brief pause between lyrics, or a voice that trembled just enough to reveal sincerity. Fans often interpreted these moments as signs of deep connection, but they were also reminders of how much Jungkook had endured to reach that point. Each performance felt like a quiet victory over the doubts that once told him he did not belong. That Jungkook's bond with the members continued to evolve, especially as they faced challenges together as a group. Military discussions, individual schedules, and long periods apart tested their unity in new ways. For Jungkook, these moments stirred old fears of separation and loss. Yet unlike before, he did not retreat into silence. He leaned into trust, relying on the foundation that had been built through years of shared struggle. This trust became proof that staying had not been a mistake. Fans also began to notice how Jungkook spoke about growth in interviews. often emphasizing effort over talent and sincerity over image. These reflections felt like echoes of his past doubts, transformed into wisdom. He no longer framed success as something guaranteed by ability alone, but as something earned through resilience and self-understanding. In doing so, he quietly offered comfort to those who saw their own struggles reflected in his words. The idea that Jungkook nearly left BTS now feels less like a shocking revelation and more like an essential part of his evolution. It explains why his presence feels grounded rather than inflated by fame. It explains why he remains humble despite global recognition, and why he consistently credits the group rather than elevating himself above it. The near loss of that connection taught him its value in a way nothing else could. As BTS's legacy continues to grow, Jungkook's unseen drama remains woven into the group's narrative like an invisible thread. It reminds fans that the group's strength was never just about synchronized choreography or chart-topping hits. It was about 7 individuals choosing, again and again, to stay together despite fear, exhaustion, and uncertainty. Jungkook's story also reshapes the way fans view success. It challenges the idea that doubt is a sign of failure. Instead, it suggests that doubt can be a sign of care, of responsibility, of someone who understands the weight of what they hold. Jungkook cared deeply about BTS, about music, and about the people who believed in him. And that care was precisely what made the thought of leaving so painful. In the present, Jungkook stands at a point where his past no longer defines him, but it continues to inform him. The fear that once nearly pulled him away has become a quiet reminder of how far he has come. Each step forward carries the memory of a time when stepping away felt easier than staying, and that memory gives his perseverance meaning. The unseen drama of Jungkook's journey is not a tale of scandal or conflict, but of internal courage. It is the story of a young artist learning that staying does not mean being trapped, and leaving does not always mean freedom. Sometimes, the bravest decision is to remain, to grow, and to trust that the version of yourself you are becoming is worthy of the path you chose. And as BTS continues forward, Jungkook's presence serves as silent proof that even the most uncertain beginnings can lead to extraordinary endings, not because the fear disappears, but because it is finally understood.
There we go.